In the world of crossover SUVs, there are a lot of choices. Sometimes I think it's even too many choices. But in this video, we're going to focus on two of them. The 2025 brand new Nissan Murano and also the 2025 Honda Passport. And I'm going to let you know exactly which one I would buy of these two. I've reviewed both of them in person. So it's going to be interesting to go into the details here about this design. Specifically the Murano. I do like the design, but the front end, I did a small little tweak to the redesign of that to remove some of these parallel lines that we have in the front. But before we jump in here and have a look at the front, side, and rear and the interior of the Passport and the Murano, let's check out the details, the spec and tech for both of these models. So starting with the Nissan Murano here, we do have a brand new styling, of course. So Nissan has given the Murano a sharp new design for its fourth generation. Not only is its styling more contemporary now, I think it looks completely different when it comes to the DNA of the core styling compared to the previous one, which was a lot of bubbly styling, a lot of lines. This is more dialed down and strict. But the new Murano pinched rear quarter window and a swept back roofline are reminiscent of the Genesis GV70. A turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine replaces the previous model's V6 engine, and we're happy to see that the 2024 model, thankfully, they ditched the CVT gearbox, which has been around in the Murano since 2003, one of the first SUVs with a CVT gearbox, and now instead we have a conventional 9-speed automatic, which is great to see. Pricing for the Murano starting at $41,860 and goes up to the Platinum, which is the one I reviewed, up to $50,990 for the Platinum. And if Car and Driver here, I'm going to link both of these articles down below, if they were to pick one, they would go for the mid-range SL. And I probably agree with them there because the SL has a lot of nice features such as heated exterior mirrors, a panoramic sunroof, tinted windows, memory settings for the driver's seat, and you also get the 10-speaker Bose stereo, in-dash navigation, auto-dimming rear-view mirror, and an integrated garage door opener. And the good news here, even with the middle trim, you still get the 360 exterior camera system, which is a great feature to have, of course, and ambient interior lighting, which looks nice inside of the dash. And I do believe you have like 48 different colors for the Murano to choose from. All Muranos come with the same turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine making 241 horsepower. As we said, the 9-speed is standard now, as is front-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is available as an option on the SV and comes standard on the SL and Platinum trims. And this is one of these cars that I feel like you sort of want to have it as an all-wheel drive. It just looks like an all-wheel drive car to me. It's not only a new design, but it also offers a way better handling than the old model with more precise steering and a planted feel. 0 to 60, they say here in the article, is 8 to 8.3 seconds, but this is actually a lot faster than that. It's much closer to 6.8 to 7 seconds. So it is a pretty fast SUV, this thing. Towing capacity comes in at a modest 1,500 pounds. Not that great. The fuel economy is somewhere between 23 city, 24 highway, and it's the same if you go for the front-wheel drive and the all-wheel drive, which to me is even more so a reason to go for the all-wheel drive version. Now, the interior styling is similar to the Nissan Ariya. I definitely felt the similarities between the Ariya and this new Murano. A color-shifting textured dashboard trim adds some visual pizzazz, while a touch-sensitive panel integrated into a wood trim piece serves as the climate control settings. And I am not a fan of those tactile buttons that Nissan is implementing in the Ariya and now also the Murano. It just does not feel like I'm pressing. It feels like I'm just pressing a piece of wood. It doesn't have a nice feel to it, even though it vibrates a little bit when you're pressing it. I would much rather have just regular conventional buttons. You have the zero gravity design for the seats, very comfortable seats in this car. All models come with a power lift gate to access the cargo area, and you have a generous 33 cubic feet with the rear seats up and 64 cubic feet with the rear seats folded. And then, of course, on the inside, you now have this dual setup 12.3 inches color display for both the gauge cluster and the infotainment screen. I thought this looks good because you have a cap for it, and the integration of this screen looks very nice. It doesn't feel like just an iPad on top of the dash. All trims have also wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is great to see, but the SL and Platinum models come with in-dash navigation courtesy of Google Maps. Wireless charging pad, of course, 4 USB-C ports, a 6-speaker stereo is standard. But if you go for the higher trims, of course, you're going to get, as we talked about, the 10-speaker Bose stereo. Now, when it comes to the safety features, you do have driver assistance tech is standard across the Murano lineup, including lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, and blind spot monitoring. So you do get a lot of features. Even, I would say, even if you go with the base model and you just add all-wheel drive, you still have a Murano with a lot of cool features, wireless Apple CarPlay and stuff like that. So the warranty here, 3 years, 36,000 mile warranty, and powertrain warranty up to 60,000 miles or 5 years. So not bad at all. Now, moving on to the Honda Passport here. Now, the thing about this, though, is a 2025 model year, and it's been around for a while. And I'm going to let you know, it's going to be a bit of a surprise at the end of this video, which one of these, which one I would buy. I'm not going to say more than that right now. So you have a 280 horsepower V6, the only engine choice, a little bit more power, 40 horsepower more than the Murano. And you also have a 9-speed automatic in this one as well. All-wheel drive is the only transmission that you can get, the only drivetrain you can get. The Passport doesn't have the off-road capabilities that you have in the Ford Bronco and Hyundai Santa Fe, for example, but it does get a little better if you go for the Trail Sport. And I really like the Trail Sport. It was a very nice riding vehicle, and they also added the beefier off-road tires now for 2025, which is something that you kind of obviously need to have if you're going to go with the Trail Sport. They made no changes to the Passport for the 2025 model year, but a comprehensive redesign of the two-row SUV is coming in 2026. Pricing starts at about $43,795 and goes up to the Black Edition up to $49,865. Personally, now, Car and Driver here would choose the base model. I would 100% go with the Trail Sport because it has this more off-road look to it, which I think suits pretty much any SUV proportions. The good news here, though, is that all-wheel drive has been made standard even on the base model since 2023. Now, under the hood, you do have the same 283.5-liter V6 and 9-speed automatic that you find in the Pilot as well. All models use all-wheel drive, as talked about. The steering is pleasantly direct, which makes it feel nimble. It also has pretty decent ground clearance here, 8.1 inches, enough to get you across a fair amount of rough terrain. Going with the Trail Sport, though, the one I would go with, it has more meaningful capability off-road, but it's not going to be as good as the Ford Bronco or the Jeep Wrangler. And personally, when you look at the Honda Passport, even the Trail Sport, it doesn't look like it's supposed to be competing with a Ford Bronco or a Jeep Wrangler. So this is sort of in between. You got some off-road capability, but it's also a little bit more civilized on-road than the Bronco and the Wrangler, of course. 0 to 60 takes 5.9 seconds. So this is a very quick SUV. It doesn't look like a vehicle that does 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds. The maximum towing capacity is 5,000 pounds. Compare that to the Murano's 1,500 pounds. You get a lot more towing here, so that's something that you're going with. It's kind of obvious that you need to go with the Passport. The fuel economy comes in at 19 city, 24 highway, combined 21 miles per gallon. And I really like the interior here because we have a lot of physical knobs and buttons and toggles for the climate settings. And the climate settings also have a separated display. Small one, but it's still a separated unit in the middle of the dash. And I love to see that when companies separate that from the regular infotainment screen. It just makes it so much easier to figure out what it is you're doing and adjusting. So the back seat is also roomy and allows Passport to transport up to 5 people. 41 cubic feet of storage behind the rear seats with the seats folded up. If you fold them down, you're going to get 78 cubes of room. Now for the connectivity here, you have an 8-inch infotainment screen, which is totally fine for me. Don't need a 14-inch screen on the dash. 8-inch to me is sort of the sweet spot. I really don't think we need to go bigger with screens these days. You do get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It also includes Bluetooth and a wireless smartphone charging pad. A 7-speaker audio system is offered on the base and the Trail Sport. If you upgrade to the top of the line, you're going to get a 10-speaker audio system. And I think that is probably the main reason why you want to go with the top of the line instead of the Trail Sport. Safety and driver assistance, you do have forward collision warning, adaptive cruise control, and blind spot monitoring as standard. And it looks to be, the warranty down here looks to be the exact same as we have on the Murano. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here and let's check out these two designs, because the new Murano, to me, if you look at these two, they don't really look like they kind of compete with each other, because the Murano looks like a much more luxurious SUV compared to the Passport, specifically the Trail Sport, of course, with this more off-road ruggedness to it. But I do like what they did with the Murano, specifically in the rear end. The rear end design is by far my favorite view for the new Murano. I think it looks super clean. However, in the front end, we have all these lines now, horizontal lines all across the front end. We do have a new design for the V-Motion grille here, sort of integrated in the lower section, and then I also house the daytime run lights. And what I do like here graphically is that if we draw out these lines that we have in the grille, they then connect to each single LED that we have on the side, looking very cool. But the thing that I would want to change here is the connection between this lower section of the V-Motion grille up top into this headlight unit up top. I want to have some sort of connection between the two and just remove some of these parallel lines, because if we have too many parallel lines in the front end, it's going to make for a very static looking design. And this is not a big brother, you know, it's a medium-sized SUV, so we don't need it to be too stately. I do like this line that we have going in the hood, because it cuts in right here into the grille, and it does have a bit of a chamfer right there. Headlight unit, 3 LED headlights integrated right here. Thankfully, we don't have bumper headlights down here. Much rather have them in the conventional position like we have for the Murano right here. Now, looking at the Passport here, this to me looks sort of, it has a very minibus or minivan look to it. It still looks very clean, typical Honda design up top here with the Honda graphics, the big grille with the Trail Sport logo right here. Big, huge openings in the mesh of the design. I do like that we have functional air curtains here on the sides. We have an LED fog light down there, indicator light here. You have the daytime run light being typical Honda shape. So when you look at this, it looks sort of anonymous, but you still know that it's a Honda because of some of the key graphics, for example, how the headlights is connected to the grille. It just gives it away as a Honda, and I do think it looks very nice. 8.1 inches of ground clearance down here. Now, looking at the side view of the Murano, what I love here is just how sporty this looks. It looks almost like a coupe SUV, but it's just a play with graphics, because we have this black piece up here carving out removing a lot of volume in the rear. Even though it's not proportionally a coupe SUV, it still looks like a proper SUV. I love the shoulder line, how it connects to the front corner of the headlights right there. And this is the Nissan Z line down at the bottom. You can see how it goes from low to high, so it goes upwards instead of what we usually see, a line going down like this, from low in the front end to high in the back, and then moving backwards like this. This is sort of the inverted version of that, and I do think it looks very cool. We have this fishtail design for the greenhouse, looking super nice, and also adds some uniqueness to this design. Over the rear axle is a huge muscle that looks very clean. I like how that connects then to the shoulder line, and the proportions of this look very, very nice. I think the side view, probably the 3/4 rear view is going to be my favorite view for this. I'm not a fan of these wheels at all, though. I think these you look at the cleanliness of the lines and the bodywork of this Murano, and then you have the wheels looking way, way, way too complex. I want to simplify this a lot and just switch those out to something more simple for the wheels. Now, looking at the Trail Sport here, you can see that we do have this sort of old school styling for Honda with, what I mean by that is we have a lot of fluid lines, curvatures. It looks a little bit more tougher than what we're used to seeing from Honda, of course, with the off-road wheels and tire setup here that we have with the Trail Sport. And this is the main reason when I would pick the Trail Sport, because we do get those features in this trim level, and I do think it looks great. It suits this car overall. Like the taillights, always been a fan of these Passport taillights. They're not too big, they're very tiny, and I think it suits the overall proportions to have small taillights in this case. And of course, this one being equipped with the rooftop tent up here, just to show you how you can spec your personal Passport. I think it looks very cool also with the spare tire right here in the rear end. Now, looking at the rear end design, and the Murano just looks great in the rear. This light bar that we have, it feels like everybody's putting light bars on their cars today, but Nissan tried to do something different here, because you can see all these small vertical LEDs inside of the light bar, creating something, again, something unique for this design that I appreciate to see, and not just put one single LED that goes across the entire rear end. We have a nice chamfer here, Murano spelled out, platinum, all-wheel drive, and you don't have visible exhaust pipes, which is totally fine for me because this, again, feels more like a luxurious SUV instead of a sporty one. One detail I really appreciate that Nissan did here, first of all, check out this roofline. Super coupe-like roofline. I love to see that. Even though it's not a coupe SUV, you can still have a roofline like this and visually have it look like a coupe SUV, but proportionally it still has the same proportions as a regular SUV. Now what I like that they did here, really appreciate, is that you see this spoiler up top. It's not too big, but you don't see a wiper down here just sitting here and ruining the clean overall design that we have in the rear end. Instead, this wiper is hidden super deep, almost sits back here inside under this roof spoiler, and I love to see that. They didn't have to do that. It probably cost a little bit more money engineering wise to have that solution, but it just cleans up the rear end so much than to just have a wiper, you know, sitting right here. If you look at the Passport here, they do have the wiper here, but again, this is more of a rugged, utilitarian looking design, so I don't mind it in this case. Here we have the small taillights that we talked about, triangular shape for the taillights. I want to see LEDs for the indicators for this specifically the higher trim levels. As the Trail Sport is. Do love that we have the visible exhaust down here. Spare tire, because this is something that you need to have if you're going to go on trails like this and have a puncture. You don't want to get stuck out there without a spare tire. I do think the Passport still looks very cool and pretty clean. Love that we have the blacked out graphics going around the greenhouse here and also around the wheel arches in the lower section. Now the interiors. This is a huge deal for me because if you look at the Honda here, it has more of a, it's starting to look a little dated. More on that in a minute. And then you look at the Nissan here. This is typical Nissan for 2025 interiors. And these are the buttons down here that I am not a fan of at all. Because if you want to adjust the temperature fast, you need to like click this so many times, and it doesn't feel like it's as responsive. It's just a knob or a dial or something like that to adjust the temperature. But what I do like in here is the integration of the dual screens. We have the infotainment screen, 12.3 inches, gauge cluster here, configurable, of course, everything being digital. And we also have this nice flowing wave of a cap on top of both of these, and this is a material that looks absolutely beautiful when you're sitting inside of this, because this is sort of a color shifting, I think they called it Murano glass material for the interior, and it looks beautiful. It has this chameleon fade to it when you're changing the angles. It looks very cool. New steering wheel, it looks okay. Usually I'm not a fan of, you know, two spoke designs that we have right here. I would much rather have a little bit of sportier vibe with a third spoke going down in the lower section. But overall, I do think this is a clean, it's a very welcoming and warm interior, and that's hard to do when you have so many displays. But I think this has done a great job with that. Now looking at the Pilot here, or the Passport I mean, now this is what I was talking about. Having a separated unit for the climate settings down here. It's so much easier to use these toggles up and down for the temperature. And we have an 8-inch infotainment screen that doesn't look too badly integrated here. 8 inches totally fine. I don't need a bigger one than this. Wireless Apple CarPlay, of course. The overall styling for the Passport, though, is starting to look a little dated because we have these fluid lines or flow lines that isn't in line with the rest of the lineup of Honda for 2025. There is going to be a change of that pretty soon. Then we also have a pretty dated looking steering wheel, but everything is just completely functional, and I do like that. I do appreciate that with the Honda Passport, that it feels a little dated, but sometimes, specifically when it comes to car interiors, dated these days, to me, does not mean bad. Usually it is the complete opposite. Again, I want to have a regular shifter here instead of these buttons that we have for Hondas. Couple of USB here. You have cup holders and some storage in between, right there, in between the seats. So which one of these would I personally buy? So if I were to pick between these two, the 2025 model years, I think I would still go, honestly, with the Honda Passport, because I love the Trail Sport trim. I think it suits the vehicle overall. I also prefer the older looking interior. But if I were in the market for one of these, I would 100% wait. Just wait a couple of months because Honda has just unveiled the 2026 Honda Passport, and that design is a beautiful looking vehicle, and it looks a lot more boxy and chiseled and rugged than the 2025 model year. So for me, I would just hold on for a minute and wait for the 2026 Honda Passport to reach dealers, and then I would go and get that one.